and it was an opportunity that was a little bit like an assisted place, if you see what I mean. It was an era where we were supporting kids to come from inner city backgrounds like the one I had in Tottenham. I could sing. It was the era of Alan Jones, who'd got to number 10 in the chart, or number 1 in the charts with Walking in the Air, who was at Bangor Cathedral. And the King's School Peterborough was attached to Peterborough Cathedral, where I was a chorister, but I was able to attend the state school, and it was an extremely good church state school. It wasn't always easy. I said that before. I was the only black kid at the school, and that was not always easy in the 1980s, no doubt about it, but it did transform my life. There were some exceptional teachers. Many of them are still around and are very, very dear friends. I might also say that the primary school I went to in Haringey, Downhills Primary School, was also an exceptional state primary school, where I was hugely encouraged. I remember a wonderful, wonderful teacher that I had, Mrs. Shepherd, who developed my love of music and encouraged me to apply to the King's School. The wonderful teachers, Mr. Warren, the head teacher, Mrs. Graham. There's so many teachers. They make such an important impact on your life. So I'm a big believer in state education for that reason.
In a quarter of a mile at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312.
In a plural system where parents are able to make their own decision about where they send their children to school. I do think that parents should have that right, but I have to say the gap of funding between those who go to private schools and those who go to state schools, the fact that it's grown so disproportionately over the last decade is totally unacceptable and isn't right. Tara in Lewisham. Tara, thank you for calling in.
Oh, hello. Thank you for taking my call. Well, may I just say, first of all, useful Prime Minister.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway. Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
To be Prime Minister, because we've got, if I look at the list of Prime Ministers, I'll get it up for you and give you, they all went to public schools, they didn't go to state schools.
Okay, so this is what Christine is your main advisor, because she was brilliant.
She was excellent, yeah.
I think very engaging, very profitable. Okay, so to get to the point of this, so I went to a private school, or I was sent to a private school, I should say. I'm now 50.
Where was the private school? Can you say where it was?
Bromley.
Bromley, a private school in Bromley. Okay. And
Yeah,
what was your experience of going? What was your experience of going to that private school?
Well, most of the time I didn't, because I was banking off.
Oh.
I was a very naughty girl.
Okay.
And the best thing I learned from that was how to climb fences, essentially.
To not go to school. Sounds like some
I spent
trimmings.
most of my time avoiding it. But the thing is, so to get to the plot, I was in the headmistress's office a lot of time, being told off. It's quite scary at that sort of age. But when it came to A-levels, we're talking back in the day, A-levels, I chose to do that, and it wasn't.
In a quarter of a mile at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
I don't, should I mention a boarding school name? I'm not sure. Well, okay, so private school name to get a scholarship, and I got a partial scholarship. I decided not to go. I was a bit mad in those times, I would say. I had every hair colour under the sun.
That's fine.
And some not under it.
Tara, tell me, have you got to a place where basically you think Nadeem Zadari is right or wrong in relation to what he says about private school? It sounds like you're saying, look, I think it's overblown.
What needs to happen for this country to come together in relation to education is that a lot more money needs to be put into public funding.
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
State schools, that's what you mean, not public.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Tara, I'm going to end the call there because I want to get some calls in on this. Ronnie in Havering. Ronnie.
Hiya, David. I am a student at a state school, And I suppose I think the most the thing that we're missing is that in fact in a lot of state schools the thing, well in my experience anyway, it's just I don't think that there's really an opportunity within state schools to excel, right? Just a bit of context. I'm a grade 9 student.
Well done.
Basically everything. I'm about to take my GCSE. But what I found is that in state schools there's this mentality that, you know, we're all the same, let's all be in the same set, let's be mixed ability. And you know, much more chances that the mixed ability set, the problem is, a lot of people in state schools, they just mess around the whole time, you know, even in fact in the set, I'm in obviously top set beside, and I have people, you know, they're making chicken noises at the back of the class. They're trying to teach, and I feel really bad for the teachers, but the classes have only got bigger, and I think there's been less attention on the curriculum.
Ronnie, how have you got to being a grade 9 student as you head into your GCSEs? Because that's exceptional. That's just for those listening. A 7 is an A in our country. An A star is an 8. So Ronnie, you're incredibly bright if you're a sort of straight 9 student, if that's what you're heading to. The school must have achieved something. You haven't, can't all have been down to you. Or have you had tutoring? How have you got there, Ronnie?
That's a very interesting question. That's actually a fantastic question. Because my parents, they don't take the 11th class because they thought it'd be too much pressure, and I've never wanted a tutor. And to be honest with you, I've never been lucky enough to afford all of the textbooks. And so every night, you know, every night for months now, I've gone over for 3-4 hours for these textbooks, and perhaps even more over the past 2 weeks. And I think it's the effort I've been at home really, and I'm lucky to have such a good home environment that's allowed me to get those grades. I don't think really.
Let me just say, I mean, I've got teenagers at home. That sort of dedication is exceptional. Ronnie, what are you wanting to go on to do? What are you interested in?
So you've obviously got quite a good job.
Are you a Labour man or a Conservative?
The thing is, right, there's a lot of rubbish from both sides. And at the end of the day, right, I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And you know, that's all I think. I don't think, you know, I think I can see the problem. I think I can see the problem, but I don't, you know.
I think you were about to say that you were going to, anyway, that you moved on from politics. What are you interested in doing? Physics, so
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Don't worry, I'll make sure not to tell it.
You're going to make a lot of money, David. Ronnie, I think this has been very helpful. There'll be some teachers listening who have a view on this. Please call in if you're a teacher. Ronnie, best of luck to you.
Keep right to stay on M4.
If you're interested in politics and you're interested in my kind of politics, I'm not going to pass up a state school kid who's going to get...
Continue on M4 for 2 miles.
But I've got to say, anyone listening, if you're doing that well in maths or science, I think you've got a very bright future ahead of you. It's disappointing in a sense that the mixed ability, the kids messing around, is part of the story, and what you think means that actually state schools aren't quite what they should be. But very, very grateful to you calling in. Should we be proud of our private schools? How do we make the education system fairer? Should we be proud of our private schools? That's the question. 0345 6060 973. After the break, 50 more fines over the Downing Street parties. How many more will there be? But first, time for the news. It's 6:30 and it's time for the news with Simon Morgan.
President Putin has told Finland that joining NATO would be a mistake. He spoke with the Finnish president earlier after the country expressed its intention to join the alliance. Turkey says it also has reservations about Finland and Sweden becoming members. members. The TV chef Jamie Oliver has been criticising the government's decision to delay a ban on multi-buy junk food deals and advertising. He's tweeted that it's a wasted opportunity that erodes the country's efforts to tackle obesity. And the government has suspended links with the National Union of Students due to concerns over anti-Semitism. The university's minister has ordered the NUS to be removed from all Department of Education groups. LBC weather, heavy showers this evening in Devon and Cornwall, pushing northwards and eastwards, feeling humid in the south, a bit cooler in the north, an overnight low of 6. Another warm day in store for Sunday, but showers could develop during the afternoon in southern areas and in parts of western Scotland with a high of 25.
This is LBC. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my patients. I'm a Macmillan nurse. If they want me to stay with them at night while their partner gets some sleep, they just need to say. If they want to go back home to see their family for Christmas, I'll get them there, even if it's in the Outer Hebrides. They want to get married in bed? Done. I do whatever it takes. So asking you to donate isn't a problem either. Just visit macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support. Whatever it
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
One day when it ends like, those might be sustainable, but our business won't be. We need more customers. And then it hits it. We need GoDaddy. Look, we can get the main name and build a website. Yes, to get found online and reach more customers.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Everyone. This looks associate. It's organic. Yes, sir. They made out of more sustainable ink. All the help and tools you need to grow a love. GoDaddy. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is in cinemas and zooming into McDonald's Happy Meal. Sonic, here you are. Sonic? Oh, he's off. You can join Sonic on an epic adventure and enjoy the choice of a book or toy in every Happy Meal. Until the 17th of May, subject to availability, from 11 AM. Includes choice between book or toy, but not the specific item or range. Supply issues may arise. Check mcdonalds.co.uk for changes.
Hi, McDonald's here. These days we're all concerned with the rising price of energy and how to be more sustainable. But the team at Euronics have got some great solutions. Like, did you know you could save up to 38% more energy using eco programs on your washing machine? With brands like Beko, Blomberg and Hotpoint. And with over 600 Euronics stores nationwide, you can just pop in or give them a call. For great local service, just ask. This is LBC with David Lammy. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Back to your calls on private schools in a moment, but I'm joined by Adam Wagner, who's a barrister at Doughty Street Chambers. I should say that's the Chambers where I am an associate tenant as well. I was a lawyer before becoming a member of Parliament. Adam, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Adam, the list just continues. We've had more fines from people who attended the Downing Street parties. I mean, I think Number 10 has now had more fines than any other institution in the country. Am I right about that?
I don't think we know for sure, but I was tracking these regulations pretty closely, and I think in terms of institutions, you're absolutely right. I mean, probably the only equivalent numbers would have been at some of the big raves and the weddings, the illegal weddings that people had. So, and I certainly didn't see over 100 at a particular gathering, but we don't know for sure.
Is it likely that some of the individuals that were fined have been fined for a second time? And if so, what sort of fees would they have been paying?
Well, I don't know. The only person that we know was at more than one gathering for sure was the Prime Minister, and he's only been had one fixed penalty notice so far. But
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Up to £6,400 for 6 gatherings, depending on when they were. So you can quite quickly get into the thousands if you getting fixed penalty notices for a few gatherings.
How serious in the end is a fixed penalty notice if you can get up to 6 and pay 400 quid? Are we taking this too seriously, do you think, in the media and in the Labour Party and publicly?
Well, I think it depends on who you are, really. If these had been members of the public who organised the birthday party and didn't really understand the rules. I don't think it is particularly serious. I think that's why they are fixed penalty notices. I think there's a difference that these are in Downing Street. I mean, they're quite literally the people who were writing the regulations. I mean, one of the leading parties that they've had fixed penalty notices over was the person in charge of the group that was drafting the regulations. So I think that is serious. And I think, look, if it was only one gathering, I think that would be one thing. But I think the fact that it's 12 over the course of a year, and the Prime Minister himself is getting one, and will probably get quite a few more, I think that is really serious. I mean, it's law breaking, these are criminal sanctions, and they are the people that were responsible for the rules themselves.
Now, this week also, Keir Starmer has said that he will resign in the event that he has a fine. Many of our listeners will be trying to work out whether he's going to receive a fine. Most will say that he wouldn't have said that if he thought he was going to receive a fine. What's your assessment of so-called Beergate and the likelihood of Keir Starmer receiving...
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
I don't think that he'll get a fine, a fixed penalty notice. I don't see what the issue really with that gathering is, and the more evidence that's come out, the more I've thought that's the case. It looks like this was part of...
Exit at junction 6.
When he went to visit a constituency just before the local elections. So this is all about political decision making. You know, whether he would have
in a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
It was a question of political judgment for the Labour Party, and they obviously took into account the COVID risk because it's written on the programme. You know, this is the level of lockdown, these are the social distancing requirements, and these are the mitigating measures. So I really don't think... I think if the police did give them fixed penalty notices, it would, you know, they would have to open up all of the politicians' visits to local constituencies during that election, which would be a complete misunderstanding of what these rules were for and why there was exceptions for work. So I do think this is different to the social gatherings which were held at Downing Street, and that's why the Met was investigating those. And I actually don't really think the police should have reopened this unless...
Exit the roundabout onto Tuns Lane.
They've probably made an error in doing that, but we'll see. I might be wrong.
Adam Wagner, barrister at Doughty Street, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, bringing us up to date on both the number 10 parties and the fines, the new fines that have been issued, the no 15 issued, but also the situation...
Continue on A355 for 1 mile.
He will resign in the event that he receives a fine. Very grateful indeed. Back to your calls. Pemba in Wood Green. Pemba.
Hi David, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you so much for calling in.
So, I don't know if you recall, there was a school once upon a time in Tottenham called What Hut Lane School.
I do know that school very well, of course.
So, myself and my brother were pupils a long time ago at What Hut Lane School, which obviously was a very poor state school at the time, not great kind of level of achievement from its students.
I've got to say, Pemba, that I remember one of the first schools I visited as MP, this is now 23 years ago, was White Hart Lane School. I was a little worried, I've got to say, about some of the discipline at the school, and shortly after visiting the school there was a change of head, and it dramatically changed the outcomes at that school. Now I can't remember the stage at which I visited when you were there, but it certainly went through a problem period.
Agreed. So you actually visited when...
Use the middle lane to turn slightly right at Sippenham Lane, then turn left onto Tuns Lane.
A certificate saying, you know, well done for completing...
Turn left onto Tuns Lane, A355. In 200 yards, turn right onto Cranbourne Road. Turn right onto Cranbourne Road.
Myself, and just listening to the conversation that you're having with various listeners, I just wanted to, well, you know, I was quite fortunate and so on.
In 300 yards, turn left onto Bath Road.
Well, we then went on to a good college, and then, you know, went on in life to stand on our own 2 feet. But I just wanted to kind of
What are you doing now? I want to know, Pam, what are you doing now?
So I work in a very large global financial services institution, which, you know, attracts talent from people who have gone through private and state education. I do have to say the majority are private or paid education versus the proportion that come from state.
Yes.
But
have you got one of those big banking jobs and make a lot of money?
I'm not going to go down that
Okay,
path. I'm going to focus on the fact that when I was at Wild Hart Lane, obviously our parents did a lot of that hard work in the background.
Yes.
But we had some great teachers, which we still remember today, that inspired us. And I think, you know, it's really important for there to be greater reward and, you know,
those
compensation.
Wonderful teachers. Oh, well done for saying that. They do such a fantastic job. It's exactly how I feel about my state school teachers who changed my life because of the work they put in to get me from where I was to where I am today. And that's how you feel as well.
Exactly. And I know we do spend, or, you know, society spends an awful lot of money on the children and the organisations and establishments that they are educated within. But when we look at these state schools, there are some fantastic teachers from great, you know, educational backgrounds themselves, and, you know, they do inspire. Even if it's just a handful, you know, it makes a difference, and that has led to the conversation we're having right now.
Pembe, thank you so much for calling in, and you know, good luck to you coming from a state school and standing up for state school teachers and the rewards that they should get but often don't get. Georgina in Norfolk. Georgina.
Hello, good evening.
Thanks for calling in, Georgina. You're an A-level student.
I am, yeah. So I got a bursary to a private school in Norfolk. I started and I had just had one parent. She was on her own. She couldn't really afford to kind of feed us, but she knew the